classifying tone and mood today. So just to quickly review, we've talked about tone a little bit in our last unit. So tone is the way an author or speaker feels about a subject. There may be more than one tone that an author takes toward a work at the same time. So for example, a novel could be both humorous and it could be dark, right? So like darkly funny. The tone that an author uses influences what kind of a story he or she tells and how the audience perceives it. So if you think about tone, you could think about telling your friend a story about someone who texted you like 10 times in one day. The tone will change based on how you feel about the sender. If it's someone that you have a crush on and they texted you 10 times, that's going to be a pretty exciting story. You'll be pretty happy about it probably. But if the person texting you 10 times is someone you really don't want to hear from that will not leave you alone, it's going to be a very different story. The tone, the way you, the speaker, feel about it, will be very different. So mood is a little bit different. Mood is the emotional feeling or atmosphere a text creates in the reader. So again, tone is the way an author or speaker feels, but mood is the feeling or atmosphere that you, the reader, are getting. All works of literature produce some sort of emotional and psychological effect. Every reader might respond differently to the same work, but there's often a similar mood produced. So for example, in a thriller, most readers will feel some sort of suspense, right? If you guys all went to a horror movie, we might all feel a little different about the movie, but we'd all probably have some sort of, sense of dread or suspense or terror at some point in that movie. The mood that a work provokes often changes many times throughout the book. So most books, especially, chapter length, are not going to have one mood the whole way through, but different scenes might have specific moods. So mood is how you, the reader, feel about something in the book. Mood and tone are often confused, but they actually are different literary devices. They're similar, but they are different. Any emotion can be used to describe the tone or the mood. An author's tone will impact the mood. So they're not the same, but they're related. Tone and mood can be similar. For example, if an author feels negatively about a topic, they'll often use a negative tone to then create a negative mood for the reader. So oftentimes mood and tone are related because tone can influence mood. So they're not the same thing, but they work really closely together. To determine mood, it's going to be a little bit similar to determining the tone. So the author's word choice helps us determine the mood. Different factors work with word choice to create the mood, like setting, characterization, plot details, and tone. So these are all things that can influence the mood. Setting, characterization, plot details, and tone. So to determine the mood, you just have to look at the big picture and not just the word choice. So all these devices work together, but they create one sort of big mood that the author is going for. So this is an example. This is from an Agatha Christie novel. So she wrote suspenseful books. If you read this section, there are some word choices and phrases underlined here. So the others went upstairs, a slow, unwilling procession. If this had been an old house with creaking wood and dark shadows and heavily paneled walls, there might have been an eerie feeling. But this house was the essence of modernity. There were no dark corners, no possible sliding panels. It was flooded with electric light. Everything was new and bright and shining. There was nothing hidden in this house, nothing concealed. It had no atmosphere about it. Somehow that was the most frightening thing of all. They exchanged good nights on the upper landing. Each of them went into his or her own room, and each of them automatically, almost without conscious thought, locked the door. So the words there that are underlined, like essence of modernity, new and bright and shining, those words show a modern house without what we'd normally consider a spooky atmosphere, but the tone of the passage, some of the things that are highlighted there, unwilling, frightening, automatically locking the door, that helps us see that the mood is full of fear and anxiety. So we're looking at the word choice, but also at the big picture here. So the words give us some clues, but if you only looked at some specific words like modern or bright and shining, you might miss the overall mood, which is, it is still kind of fearful and anxious because they feel kind of creeped out, even though it's very modern. Another example here, this is from Haroun. Rainwater dripped onto the note from Haroun's hair. What to do, son? Rashid pleaded piteously. Storytelling is the only work I know. When he heard his father sounding so pathetic, Haroun lost his temper and shouted, "What's the point of it? What's the use of stories that aren't even true?" Rashid hid his face in his hands and wept. Haroun wanted to get those words back, to pull them out of his father's ears and shove them back into his own mouth. But of course, he couldn't do that. And that was why he blamed himself when, soon afterwards, and in the most embarrassing circumstances imaginable, an unthinkable thing happened. So what do you think the mood is in this passage, and what helped you figure it out? This is from Stephen King's The Shining. He rolled in his bed, twisting the sheets, grappling with a problem years too big for him, awake in the night like a single sentinel on picket. And sometime after midnight, he slept, too. And then only the wind was awake, prying at the hotel and hooting in its gables under the bright gimlet gaze of the stars. So these words describe the character's actions and the setting, and they all contribute to this mood of unrest and tension. So it feels unsettled, right? Because of words like his rolling around and twisting the sheets, grappling with a problem, being awake in the night. Then the wind, the setting here, the wind's prying at the hotel, hooting in the gables, like under the roof. So that all helps produce this tense mood. So those are some examples to consider as you think about mood. And remember, mood and tone are not the same thing, even though they're related and they're similar. All right, thanks guys.